Hi, I'm Marty. Nice to meet you.
So yeah, tell me a bit about yourself, Radhika.
So I'm a driven individual. I have 2 children that I'm a single mother of. I have a first class degree from Oxford University in computer science, and I've also worked 2 years in Google in various different technical roles.
Right. Okay, so you're a single mother. Are you sure this role is going to be suitable for you? I know the hours can be quite long for a woman.
Yeah, I'm aware that the hours can be quite long in a company like this, but I do have experience working in Google, which had really similar hours, and I was able to manage that quite well.
Alright, okay, and Radhika, if I've pronounced that right, so where's that from then?
Oh, so my name Radhika is actually Indian, so I'm from India.
Alright, so now that makes sense. So you've had call centre experience, is that what you were referring to when you mentioned your experience with Google?
No, actually, I was actually involved in...
Sorry, to be honest, Radhika, I think I've heard enough. You'll hear the results by the end of the week.
I have a lot of other experience in projects I've been a part of.
I think that's enough for now, to be honest, but really thank you for your participation.
Okay, it was nice meeting you.
Alright.
Thank you.
Good afternoon and welcome to our exhibit. The interview you have just seen demonstrates an example of how an interview should not be conducted. By not hiring this candidate, outcomes could include the candidate accepting a position at a rival organisation which can benefit from her diverse background. Furthermore, due to the line of questioning, the interviewee had ground to take legal action. Our exhibition aims to make you understand and feel how and why it was morally wrong, and it will aim to do so by presenting the business case for humanities. I'd like to begin our talk today by introducing you to our poetry section. Poems utilise our 5 senses and put us in a contextual space that is specific to us. These spaces are imaginative and encourage us to be sceptical on facts. With this in mind, please embrace your 5 senses and enter your unique space when we discuss the following poems and see if you can relate to the things that you may have done unconsciously. The first poem I would like to draw your attention to is Business Girls by Benjamin. The setting of the poem is in Camden Town, which is a very expensive area to live in within London. The fact these women are having baths there suggests it is an area of residence for them, and therefore they are quite successful in order to be able to afford to live there. This raises questions as to what these women do to afford this lifestyle. However, instead the poem focuses on sexualising these women through use of descriptive language that appears to create a sexual tension when reading. Language such as businesswomen lie and soak, early nip, demonstrates how the poet focuses on things that are not important or relevant in the context. Similarly, the interviewer does this by focusing on things that are not relevant, such as the interviewee's race and his assumption that she will not be able to integrate into the group. Furthermore, the poem appears to pity and degrade women, firstly by referring to them as business girls within the title, thus symbolising the notion that they are immature. Secondly, by referring to them as poor unbeloved ones. Does this assume that because these business women are successful, they must be unloved and lonely? This poem demonstrates to us the lack of respect women receive despite being in positions where they have achieved success, and rather than celebrating this success, pity is shown instead as presumptions of them being unloved and lonely are made. The next poem is another one of Benjamin's works called The Executive. The executive within the poem continuously refers to his non-human possessions, such as his Aston Martin and speedboat, as having female entities. These possessions do have importance to him as they demonstrate status and power. The fact that our female entities can potentially raise the idea that women are used for this purpose, for their beauty, and to demonstrate the status of a man. When referring to these objects, he makes clear that he is in control. For example, when being asked about his Aston Martin, he makes the comment "she flies," almost to suggest the authority he has over this possession. Phrases such as "how did I acquire her" when referring to his speedboat also suggests the power that men can exert when they desire something, and demonstrate the inequalities that are still present within the workplace. Similar to that of the interviewer referring to the interviewee as a bird, and not placing the same respect on the female interviewee compared to the male interviewee. I'd now like to pass you over to my colleague Radhika.
Next, I will be touching on the art portion of our exhibit. Art is extremely useful in opening powerful dialogues for change, enabling organisations to use this method to become more morally aware. Please bring your attention to this first painting by Norman Rockwell from 1964. Imagine that you are 6 years old and it's your first day in a new school. You are both excited but also nervous. 4 professional white men in suits are escorting you whilst you are surrounded by a wild screaming crowd. Could it be an event or a parade? Once you get there, your teacher greets you warmly, but there are no other children. Why are you the only one in the classroom? This is exactly what happened to Ruby Bridges on her first day at elementary school in New Orleans in 1960. She was the first African American child to attend the school after a federal court order. The outcry was so severe that white parents withdrew their children and Ruby spent an entire year in a classroom by herself. Rockwell's painting was created a few years after this instance and is now considered a symbol of that struggle. He draws our attention to the issue by dressing Ruby in a white dress in comparison to the men surrounding her in mid-tones. Rockwell is best known for his sentimental images of American life, which were largely nostalgic and from a slower time. This is something he was heavily criticised for and was tagged as a kitschmeister, alluding to his work being popular but of poor quality. Yet by the 1960s, the country had changed and so had the artist, as Rockwell began to address more controversial themes such as poverty and racism. So yes, whilst Rockwell is seen as nostalgic and kitsch, this work is so different to his earlier pieces and also depicts a real and serious issue. Despite it being from 1964, artists such as Holder, who come from completely different backgrounds, also highlight the racism in current society. Please see this image by Robin Holder from 2020. She offers an unflinching gaze into the lives and realities of immigrant populations and people of colour in the US through her work. Her imagery, both universal and specific at the same time, calls upon the viewer to acknowledge the validity of their experiences. She states how everyone can engage with her images. She's not asking people to agree with them, but to consider something unfamiliar without fear. You may ask how this is relevant for Meta. Well, the TUC's Racism Ruins Lives study found that 65% of BAME workers suffered harassment at work, whilst 49% had been treated unfairly. Additionally, the 2017 McGregor-Smith review found that BAME employees are still being held back from workplace opportunities, resulting in a loss to the economy equivalent to 1.3% of GDP. Being aware of racism and that it's still present allows Meta to make changes for both employees and consumers. Moreover, within Meta, there may be many individuals who are unsure on how to respond to racism in the workplace. If you overhear a colleague making a comment, morally, what is the correct thing to do? Such questions concern moral judgment, reasoning, and development, and it is artists such like Holder and Rockwell which bring light to these issues. Meta can utilise the learnings and findings from this to improve their own HR practices. Finally, I would like to draw your attention to this painting by Zafani from 1783, based in India. Generally, we do not acknowledge the horrific violence in our history. Art focuses on bringing these truths to light and enabling the cultivation of common ground where important conversations can begin. In terms of the British Empire, the perspective of many is that we were pioneers who colonised many countries. However, this is only one perspective and very biased. Colonised societies were denied of a historical past and their histories were rewritten in order to suit and legitimise imperialist projects. Indian rulers were presented in the images as if they were incapable, and when juxtaposed with the images of British individuals, they appeared out of place in their own kingdom. The British visual representation of India was therefore a way of alienating India from itself and presenting it as a part of British Empire. This in turn, such as art in general, highlights that there are many different perspectives which may not always align with our own beliefs. This is of significance in the business case, as we need to be cautious of what we believe is true and be willing to accept other perspectives. If what is right and wrong is based on perspective, how is someone to realise what they are doing is wrong? Meta are so global across various platforms and as such hire from all around the world, so they need to be aware of different perspectives that can manifest into conflict. Human resources and conflict resolution requires individuals to be aware of different perspectives when as humans we tend to normally operate on an autopilot. This autopilot is made up of the code we have taken from our experiences in life and does not always include other perspectives, which is something that art can be used to incorporate. These different perspectives often lead to conflict as they motivate our behaviour, so there is a need to utilise humanities to teach ourselves how to move out of our own perspectives and to break the autopilot code. Now I will be passing on to my colleague Dan, who will be moving on to the final section of the gallery.
Thank you, Radhika. I'd now like to welcome you to our novels section of the gallery, an essential medium when seeking to cultivate moral awareness. Novels take you into new worlds which offer multiple and different perspectives, allowing individuals to become more culturally and environmentally aware. And as Cormair Kidd and Castano put it, these multiple perspectives in fiction are also prevalent to real life. Literacy fiction provides the opportunity to recruit the theory of mind in individuals, which is of value for identifying and understanding the subjective experiences of others, a complex and critical social capacity. Oatley and Marr state that the ability to interpret and respond to those different from us, such as colleagues, employees and bosses, is critical in cultivating moral awareness, particularly in a contemporary globalised economy. Olga Ravin's The Employees is an example of a challenging fiction that can hone the analytical empathy for Meta's employees and when determining future HR strategy. The formality and structure of the story is a challenging read. However, the power of language and symbolism the story brings is valuable in emphasising with the multiple characters' perspectives and emotions. The book addresses a rather ironic aspect of work that is a rather scathing and radical depiction of the ship's organisational approach to HR. The dehumanisation of emotion at work brings attention to and symbolises an attack on the capitalist system. The funeral ritual portrays a dehumanisation of grief, to which normally this space and work would provide an opportunity for this genuine emotion, attempting to depict an attack on how the capitalist system derives any emotional meaning from work, and more deeply, life. Ravin symbolises how capitalism impacts the social and emotional processes of individuals, with Hughes stating how the contemporary organisations often view workers as solely programmed to do their job as part of the cog in the system. This can have an impact on the quality of work that employees produce and, more importantly, on their mental health. We propose, as using this rather ironic and pessimistic symbolism of work and managerialist emotional control, as a mechanism for Meta to cultivate a more positive process of HR within their organisation. As the humanoid ending statement recognises, we've talked about the risk that in committing ourselves to this decision we might not be re-uploaded, and this we accept. This striking declarative offers an awareness to contemporary society to not end up with the same fate of the workers in the employees, hence offers Meta an inclination to attempt to break away from this controlling capitalist norm around work. Even if this is risky, uncertain and a large change to Meta's current organisational process, the book making aware of the employees' perspectives to work consuming life and the emotional unrest it can possibly bring is enough for modern organisations to question their own emotional awareness towards the well-being of their own employees. Recognising employees are not just employees, but human beings who are complex and need time away from work to recharge, reset and experience what life truly has to offer. Using the novel's context as a way of honing a moral awareness, perhaps embedding a culture within Meta that focuses less on productivity to more of a humane and flexible way of life, could be of value to the organisation. We propose this book sparks thought for Meta's functional departments to communicate with HR to strive for more of a work-life balance when planning shifts and rotas throughout the company, to which we believe is the way forward when striving for long-term strategic success. We hope the literature and art presented has sparked a recognition for moral awareness that can be implemented within Meta, more specifically the HR function. By doing so, interviews, such as the one previously shown, can be eradicated to enable the sourcing of diverse and talented individuals to further the growth of Meta. Additionally, once individuals have been recruited, moral awareness can be extended to better manage conflict across the board. One such way could be the implementation of workshops. This is just one aspect of the humanities and how it can be utilised for Meta, and it is important to recognise it is a theme of complexity with multiple perspectives. Thank you for listening and thank you for visiting our tour.